everyone! Today I'm going to be doing my June wrap-up. I read quite a few books this month, a lot actually. Let's go ahead and get started. The first book that I read this month was The Kite Runner by Hosseini. So this book is about friendship, betrayal, and guilt. So we follow our main character as he learns to become independent and also while he fights for redemption. So a part that I wish was done differently was how the Taliban was described. It felt like they were made out to be purely evil, and I don't really think that's entirely accurate. Another thing that I wish it did was talk more about Afghan culture, and also I felt like some parts of the book were highly coincidental, but overall I was really pulled into the story, a story filled with so much sadness. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. The next couple of books that I read was A Torch Against the Night and A Reaper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir. This is the second and third books to A Number of Ashes, and for both of the books, they just completely blew my mind and the stakes remain high. I cannot wait for the fourth book to come out. I gave both these books 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Radium Girls, The Dark Story of America's Shining Woman by Kate Moore. So this is about women during the turn of the 20th century who get exposed to radium from their work, and then they decide to take legal action against the corporation, but the corporation will not budge, even though I really think that they know they're in the wrong. But anyways, this book was really an eye-opener and it was really shocking and tragic. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars and I highly recommend it. I did a whole review on it. I'll leave the link down in the description if you are interested in checking that out. The next book that I read was The Lion in the Living Room: How House Cats Tamed Us and Took Over the World by Abigail Tucker. So this book describes the relationship between humans and cats. The author points out that the only thing that cats really contribute to us is their cuteness. So I learned a lot of statistics from this book. For instance, there's, I believe, over 600 million cats today in the world, and that the US euthanizes around 1 million cats per year, and that's really sad. I volunteer at an animal clinic, and last week I saw my first cat being euthanized, and that was just really sad. The cat was feral and it had a protrusion in its eye and it was in a lot of pain and no one could really take care of it, and so they had to euthanize it, and it was just really sad. I recently saw something similar to this on Netflix. It's actually called The Lion in Your Living Room, and it's different. It's not the same thing, but it talks about cats, and it was really interesting as well. I ended up giving this book 3 stars out of 5 stars because I felt like it could have been written better, I guess. The next book that I read was Obsidio by Amie, Kaufman, and Kristoff. This is the 3rd book to the Illuminae files, and there's not much to say about this book without me spoiling it. I really highly recommend this trilogy. The plot was amazing as usual. The characters are really flawed and amazing. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Circe by Madeline Miller. So I knew that I would like this book right from the start because I love Greek mythology. I love Madeline Miller's writing. I read her last book, The Song of Achilles, and I really enjoyed that one. I went into this book with high hopes and I was not disappointed. This book is about Circe. She's a nymph and a witch who gets banished to an island called Aia, and she ekes out punishments to those who deceive her. The writing is rich and beautiful. I honestly flew through this and I wanted to take my time with it because each sentence just was so seamless. The plot is amazing. I just want more from this author. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend it to anyone who loves Greek mythology. The next book that I picked up was Furyborn by Legrand. So in this book we follow 2 perspectives. And one we follow Raelle as she completes magical trials to prove that she is in fact one of the foretold Sun Queens. In the next perspective we follow a girl named Aliana. Since this story is so long and it's alternating constantly, I was kind of like, when I was reading it, I was like, wait, who am I reading? I really enjoyed this book, but I kind of was a bit underwhelmed. Aliana and Rael, they kind of seem not so much original. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I picked up was Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. So I ended up reading 100 pages of this book before I had to DNF it. So I didn't get to finish this book. I ended up giving this book 1 out of 5 stars. First of all, I picked this book up because I liked the cover, because it has an animal on it. However, once I found out that it was about taxidermy, like she mentions it a lot, I was like, okay, that's kind of knocked off a star for me. And then I continued reading. I know I wanted to give it a chance, but then it just wasn't funny. It just didn't work. Like, she literally just talks about nothing. I wanted to be about mental illness and learn about it, but I just didn't get it. So on top of like her obsessing over dead animals and also talking about nothing, I wanted to read my other books. Didn't finish it. Maybe it gets better, I don't know. But I felt like I just had to move on. So the next book that I want to talk about is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So I read this book throughout the month. I read it like a chapter a day, and I had a reading schedule with my book club. It's like a cautionary tale about what could happen in the future, and it's about women who do not have any rights. They are subjugated to being handmaids. You know, there's like different stations or divisions for women. You could be like a wife, you could be a handmaiden, you could be an equal wife. There's different divisions, but it really focuses on handmaids, and so their job is to bear children for the commander and his wife. This book was really disturbing, but I really liked the way it was written. The only problem that I had was the timeline, I guess, because like 1 minute the protagonist Offred is doing one thing in her normal life, and then the next she's thrown into this society where her rights were taken away from her. So I don't know, it's just like really too fast for me. So I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So this book has been out for a while now, and I'm surprised that I'm barely reading it. But so this is about police brutality, as I'm sure you guys know, and the illusion of justice. So we follow our main character Star as she's a young girl who's afraid to speak out. I just thought this book was so powerful, and now it's one of my favorite books of this year. I recommended it to my sister to read it, so hopefully she picks it up. It made me like seethe with anger, but also I could not put it down. I read this book really fast, and just, I don't know, I feel like everyone should read this book. I know I'm late reading it, but I finally finished it, and of course I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Soul of an Octopus, a surprising exploration into the wonder of consciousness by Montgomery. This book explores the intelligence and thought processes of octopuses. So it reads like a memoir. We follow the author as she frequently visits her local aquarium. She visits the octopuses that live there. So the author aims to answer the question if an octopus has a soul. I've learned some interesting things from this book. Like, for instance, octopuses can taste with its arms, and also it has neurons in its arms, so that's why it's able to like multitask and stuff, and I thought that was really interesting. Also, if you sever an octopus's arm, it can regrow it to almost fully function. So it's like almost fully functional. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that. Their abilities are amazing. There are some slow parts of her talking about her own life in this book. So this book is more of a philosophy book and less of science, but there is like some science. It would have been better if it just focused on the octopus though. This book really read like a memoir, like I said before, so I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I picked up was Whisper by Lynette Noni. So this book is about a girl who has a dangerous power that she tries to suppress by not speaking. So she doesn't know how to control her abilities, and she's afraid if she speaks and unleashes her power that there will be consequences, and she doesn't want to hurt anyone, so she's basically at the mercy of her evaluators. And that is a good premise to start with, but I did not like where the story was going. The characters were not fleshed out at all. It was also really predictable. Don't recommend this book. I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. So this is a story about a 17-year-old girl who is an Aska warrior. She fights for her clan against her Riki enemies, so it really feels like we are in a Viking world filled with a lot of violence. So this book is heavily action-packed, and I did enjoy reading this. However, the characters were kind of forgettable and not too complex at all. This book has a lot of potential, and I felt like it could have been better. So I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. Okay, so those are all the books that I read, but then I ended up picking up this graphic novel, Star Trek The Next Generation, and Doctor Who. So yes, this is a mashup between Star Trek and Doctor Who, two of my favorite sci-fis. Because my favorite sci-fi is Battlestar Galactica. But I also love Doctor Who, and I'm recently getting into Star Trek because I recently saw Will Wheaton at the library, and when I went to the library, I actually picked this up that same day. So I ended up reading this. It was really fun to read. I read this book in one sitting, and I really enjoyed it because I haven't been watching the new episodes of Doctor Who. I really just want to like rewatch it, and I also am watching the Star Trek First Generation. So I don't know why I picked up the second generation or the next generation, but I did. And I went to check out the second volume to this one, but when I tried to place it on hold at my library, it was missing. So probably won't be able to do that then. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. So that is all the books that I read for the month of June. I really love reading, as you can tell, and I cannot wait to read more in July. Don't forget to like this video if you want to see more. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!